Shalom, Israel. We're going to go over 2 Corinthians 11, that chapter, to give understanding of that chapter and what it's talking about. If you don't mind, give me 2 Corinthians 11 and 1.
Would to God ye could bear with me a little in my folly, and indeed bear with me.
Okay, this is Paul talking. He's saying that he wished that you could, pretty much what he's saying, he wished you can go through a little of what he's had to go through. Verse 2.
For I am jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ.
What Paul is saying is that I have taught you to get ready for Christ, to accept Christ, and to prepare you as a in a marriage. The woman has to be prepared for her husband. That's the way it's supposed to go. And I know in the way it is now, a lot of the women are not prepared. They don't know how to cook, clean, do anything. But the woman is supposed to be prepared for her husband. And Israel is like the woman, being prepared for the Most High, for Christ. And so Paul is saying, I'm here preparing you as someone espoused to a husband. Okay? Go ahead in verse 3.
But I fear, lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ.
But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve. What he's saying is that I fear that you won't be fooled as Eve was fooled by the serpent. So he's telling them, because later on you're going to read that, you have false prophets and different people out there saying that they're Christ and everything, and he want to prepare them so that they won't be fooled by those teachers that come out that's not actually doing what they're teaching, or they're not actually teaching that which is right. Okay, 2 Corinthians 11 verse 4.
For if he that cometh preaches another Jesus, whom we have not preached, or if ye receive another spirit, which ye have not received, or another gospel, which ye have not accepted, ye might well bear with him.
So he's letting you know that there's other people that are going to come and preach Jesus, and you want to make sure that that one that preached Jesus is aligned with the scriptures, because there's a lot of false brethren, a lot of false prophets out there. There are a lot of wicked Israelites that actually teach, but they're not doing what they're teaching, and some are teaching incorrectly. Some teach all types of things. They tell you can wear hats on your head, when the scriptures, when Paul told you, he advised you that you're not to wear a hat on your head or cover your head if you're a man. So you have a lot of teachers out there who are not teaching according to what the scriptures say, or they're disregarding Paul or disregarding certain prophets that they don't like what they say so that they can do what they want to do. So he's letting you know that those people will come. Okay, go ahead, verse 5.
For I suppose I was not a whit behind the very chiefest apostles.
On verse 5, it says, for I suppose I was not a whit behind behind the very he's letting you know that I'm not the lowest. I'm not lower than the apostles that came before me, or the ones that are now. He's letting you know I'm equal to them, and some of them I'm even greater than. Letting you know that Paul is letting you know that I'm not just some regular guy. I'm actually on a high level. And Christ is working directly through me. Because you have a lot of Israelites that don't agree with some of the stuff Paul say, as if Paul is not speaking the words of the Most High, or speaking the words of Christ. Verse 6.
But though I be rude in speech, yet not in knowledge, but we have been thoroughly made manifest among you in all things.
Over here, he's letting you know that even though I speak rough with you, even though you may not like what I'm telling you, what I'm telling you is truth. Don't worry about the way in which I tell you it. Just know what I'm telling you is truth, and that it comes direct. and that you're to hear and to do exactly what I'm telling you. Okay? Verse 7, 2 Corinthians 11, verse 7.
Have I committed an offense in abasing myself that ye might be exalted, because I have preached to you the gospel of God freely?
Have I committed an offense in abasing myself that ye might be exalted? So he wants to know if humbling himself, him being humble, has he done anything that is against you by humbling himself to exalt you all? Because he has taught the word freely to you all. He's letting them know, I'm teaching this to you freely. And I have humbled myself so that you will be exalted. The gist of what he's saying is, I've lowered myself to meet you at the level where you're at. I'm not a baby in this. I'm high level. And I'm dealing direct with Christ. But I have to humble myself and I have to lower myself so that you will understand, because sometimes if you see exactly who I am, you're going to buck. Sometimes you have to humble yourself and lower yourself to someone else's level. There's teachers out there that are very headstrong. And sometimes you have to be the bigger man and lower yourself because it could cause conflict. I've dealt with leaders and different groups that I've had to humble myself, even though I may have known a lot more than they did. But I had to humble myself because I know if I went to, or when you attempt to try to help them or to raise them up to a higher level, they're not going to like that. They're going to feel like you're saying that they're less than you. So you got to kind of lower yourself so that you'll be able to be able to even get something through to them. 2 Corinthians 11, verse 8.
I robbed other churches, taking wages of them to do you service.
He's letting them know, to teach you all, I've taken from other churches just to help you all out so that I won't be a hindrance to you all, or I won't be, that I won't be a hindrance to you all in needing something from you all. So I've taken from other churches that I built just to be able to teach you all and not be a hindrance to you where I need you for something. Go ahead.
And when I was present with you and wanted, I was chargeable to no man, for that which was lacking to me the brethren which came from Macedonia supplied, and in all things I have kept myself from being burdensome unto you, and so will I keep myself.
He's letting them know, I didn't ask you for anything. I'm freely here teaching you the word of Christ. And I have nothing, I was chargeable to no man, meaning I owed no man anything. And anything I lacked, I received from other brethren that came from Macedonia. They supplied me with whatever I needed. And I didn't have to ask you all for anything. Verse 10.
As the truth of Christ is in me, no man shall stop me from this boasting in the regions of Achaia.
He's letting them know that as the truth of Christ is in me, that's letting you know that Christ is in him. And when he's speaking the words of Christ. And that no man will be able to stop him from going and teaching this word throughout. That's what he's letting everyone know. Verse 11.
Wherefore, because I love you not, God knoweth.
He's letting them know that God knows my heart. He knows I love you all, and that's why I'm here teaching you all, and that's why I've taken from other churches just to come here to be able to teach you all. Verse 12.
But what I do, that I will do, that I may cut off occasion from them which desire occasion, that wherein they glory, they may be found even as we.
verse 12, what he's saying in verse 12, but the way I move is to keep those that are trying to find something on me to destroy me. So he moves a certain way so that those that are out to get him, because there were many Israelites that did not like Paul going to the northern kingdom, the Gentiles, and some they didn't like him teaching Christ. Because remember that during this time, Christ had just died. So a lot of them didn't really know. All they knew was the old way. So you have to think, for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands, they kept the law of sacrifice. Now you have someone that's trying to change something, or that is changing something that they've been doing for many years. It's someone coming to tell you that, hey, the Sabbath day is on the seventh day, it's on Saturday. It's not on Friday evening. But you've been taught many years that it starts Friday evening. It's very difficult for someone to change and say the seventh day is Saturday. Well, these Israelites, a lot of them, you got to realize this is generations and generations of under the old law. And you're coming saying that we don't have to keep that old law anymore, that now we're under Christ, and now we still have to keep the laws, but under Christ. So so you had a lot of them that were trying to kill him, put him in jail. They're trying to do all kind of things. So he had to move a certain way. He says, but what I do, that I will do, that I may cut off occasion from them which desire occasion. I have to cut off them. I have to cut off anything that's going to give them a reason to arrest me or to do certain things that they want to do to me. Verse 13.
For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ.
Right. There are people out there that are teaching Christ, but they're not teaching the Christ that Paul taught, not the Christ that died for the children of Israel. You have some that's teaching that Christ died for all nations. You have Christians, you have even some Israelites teaching certain things that are not according to Scripture. False apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into apostles of Christ. So they're saying that these are deceitful workers. Some of these are devils even within Israel, transforming themselves into apostles of Christ, saying that they're followers of Christ, but really they're not. And they're going to come out, and you need to know how to recognize them. So Paul is here teaching them about Christ and why he moves the way that he moved. Verse 14.
And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light.
Even Satan knows how to transform himself and appear to be righteous, but he's not. And there are Israelites that appear to be righteous, but they're not. There are Israelites that don't wear fringes. You have Israelites that wear fringes at camp and then they take them off. They appear to be righteous, but they're really not righteous. You have Israelites that confess to be righteous on the street, but they go home and smoke weed. You have all kind of Israelites. And you would think, seeing them teach on the street and knowing the scriptures, that they aren't doing those things. But you have a lot of Israelites that's breaking laws. You have some Israelites that's been in 10, 20 years and never kept the Feast of Tabernacles, which is a law. So you have many false prophets or false apostles out there that teach and know scriptures, but they really are not teaching the word. They're not doing what they're teaching, and some are teaching incorrectly. Go ahead. Name the verse.
Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works.
Right. There are some that transform as ministers of righteousness, but they're not. But their end will be they're not going to make it into the kingdom. That's going to be their end. See, they just transform themselves to appear to be righteous, but in reality, they're the devil the Bible speak of. That was 2 Corinthians 11:15. Now let's go to 2 Corinthians 11, verse 16.
I say again, let no man think me a fool. If otherwise, yet as a fool receive me, that I may boast myself a little.
I say again, let no man think me. He's letting you know I'm not crazy. I'm not a fool. If otherwise, yet as a fool receive me, that I may boast myself a little. So sometimes he has to appear to be humble or sometimes appear to be a fool just to be able to speak to them or to even talk to them. So he can't be at the level he's at. He has to lower his level just to be able to speak to them for them to receive what he's trying to say. But he's not a fool. 2 Corinthians 11:17.
That which I speak it not after the Lord, but as it were foolishly, in this confidence of boasting.
Verse 17, that which I speak it not after the Lord, but as it were foolishly. Sometimes you may get someone who's on the street, who come from the world of the street, and you can't talk to them. You have to give them examples of selling drugs or different things that you may give them examples of that fit the lifestyle that they're living for them to understand. So sometimes he speak on a lower level because he needs to do that for you to understand. If he speak a certain way, you won't get it. So he will use maybe examples that you as a drug dealer did to give understanding of the scriptures, because you wouldn't understand what he's saying if he would just tell you exactly the way in which it is. So even though it's foolish, he has to do that to get you to understand. Verse 18.
Seeing that many glory after the flesh, I will glory also.
That exactly, because many people, they glory out after the flesh. They like fleshly things. They talk about fleshly things all the time. And so he sometimes has to stoop down to their level to get them to understand. Seeing ye them yourselves are for seeing that many glory after the flesh, I will glory also. So I will glory after the flesh sometime because it's necessary for me to go into those areas for you to get understanding. Verse 20.
19.
Or 15.
19.
Go ahead.
For ye suffer fools gladly, seeing ye yourselves are wise.
For ye suffer fools gladly, seeing ye yourselves are wise. What he's saying is that you accept fools with open arms is really what he's saying. Believing that you're wise, but you're accepting fools with open arms. You're accepting those that are not doing that which is right, but you believe that you're wise. But you're accepting those people into your life that are not righteous people, but they fooled you, and now but you believe you're a wise person. Go ahead, verse 20.
For ye suffer, if a man bring you into bondage, if a man devour you, if a man take of you, if a man exalt himself, if a man smite you on the face.
Go ahead to 21.
I speak as concerning reproach, as though we had been weak. Howbeit, whensoever any is bold, I speak foolishly, I am bold also.
Okay, so back up at 20. For ye suffer if a man bring you into bondage, if a man devour you, if a man take of you, if a man exalt himself, if a man smite you on the face. So if a man do all these things to you, He's saying on 21, I speak as a concerning reproach. I'm speaking of someone doing something to you, a reproach against you, as though we had been weak. Howbeit, wherein so any is bold, I speak foolishly, I am bold also. He's saying that when someone does evil to me, I make myself appear to be weak, and I speak foolishly. But I'm bold. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to. I'm trying to put it in regular terms. Sometimes you have to lower yourself and make yourself appear to be weak, even if you're a bold person, because you may be as Paul is. He was a Hebrew of Hebrews. He used to kill Israelites. He was a bold person. People feared him. But he had to lower himself and be humble. And with some he had to even appear to be foolish. So he had to lower, because when dealing with certain people, you just can't be at certain levels. You'll get jealousy, you'll get envy, you get all kind of things if they know what level you're really at. So you have to lower yourself sometimes to get across to someone. Verse 22.
Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I.
He's letting you know that all those things which they are, I am also. But not only am I that, I'm the highest level of that. I'm not just a Hebrew, a Hebrew of Hebrews, understanding the law 10 times better than you all understand it. But you have Israelites out there that say, oh, Paul, don't listen to Paul's writings. Some things he's not saying right, blah, blah, blah. He's not part of the gospel, just because they don't understand Paul, because they're not on that level. Everyone hadn't gone to an Ivy League school or college or fought in war and have certain mentality that Paul had. The reason that, as far as me, the reason that one thing that I do understand about Paul is because a lot of Paul and what he's gone through, it kind of relates to my life. So it helped me understand Paul's writings because he's speaking from a high level. Someone that has been to the highest levels in his life before submitting to Christ, and having to humble himself to deal with people, his people that may not be at that mental state or that mental level. Remember, he went out looking for people who believed in Christ and stuff and killed them. So he was a soldier too. He was a soldier. He knew the law upward and backward. But you have a lot of people that think they know it more than he does. So he has to humble himself sometimes and seem foolish because he can't really tell you exactly who he is. If you were to say, hey, I spent, without appearing to be boasting, if you were to say, hey, ever since I was young, I was pretty much number one in everything, it appears that you are boasting. I was number one in track. I was number one pole vaulter. I was number one this. Everything that you say, I was number one weightlifter. I was the number one of 4 people that graduated from water survival school. I was an officer in the Marine Corps. I was one of only several blacks that was even an officer. Everyone in the Marine Corps in my unit feared me. I was the highest of the highest. If you just go and tell, it appears that you're boasting. So you just have to lower yourself. You be quiet, and you try to deal with people on the level in which they're at. Go ahead to the next one.
Verse 23. Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I am more. In labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequent, in deaths oft.
He's letting you know why he's more. He's saying, yeah, you may be a minister of Christ. I speak as a fool. I am more. In labor, I've done more works than you've done. You may think you're on the street teaching, but stuff I've gone through is 10 times more than what you're doing. And you have the nerve to say that I'm not, that the gospel, that Christ is not speaking through me. He said, I am more in labors, more abundant in stripes above measure. He said, I've been beaten for this truth. How many of you Israelites on the street have been beaten for this truth? He says, in prison more frequently, in death often. He said, I've been in prison many times because of this truth. And people have tried to kill me over this truth. Have this happened to you? Verse 24.
Of the Jews, 5 times received, I 40 stripes save one.
Of the Jews, by my own people, 5 times I received 40 stripes save one. So he's saying at least 4 out of 5 times that the Jews were upset with me, I received 40 stripes. How many of you all got beat on the back with 40 stripes since you've been an Israelite? And he didn't do it 40. You have to multiply 40 times 4. 100, whatever, 40 times 4? 160 times? How many of you all have been beaten on the back 160 times for this truth? And you had the nerve to say that Paul don't know what he's talking about when he said not to wear a hat on your head, or you supposed to do this, or you supposed to do that? It's that you don't understand the scriptures. You wrestle with Paul's writings. Go ahead.
Verse 25. Thrice was I beaten with rods. Once was I stoned. Thrice I suffered shipwreck. A night and a day I have been in the deep.
He said 3 times I was beaten with a rod. This is outside of the stripes, the 160 stripes. How many of you all were beaten with rods? How many of you all were stoned? How many of you all 3 times suffered shipwreck trying to go teach this word in different lands? How many times y'all got shipwrecked and was in the ocean, just swimming in the ocean because the ship wrecked and you were just sitting there in the water in the deep with sharks and everything? How many of you all went through all that? And some Israelites actually think they're mightier than Paul and think they know more than Paul and hadn't gone through 1/10 of what Paul has gone through. You think because you're a drug dealer or you sold drugs or something, that means you went through something? Until you got beaten, stoned, shipwrecked, bitten by a viper, and lived to tell a story about it, you are no comparison to Paul. And you should listen to Paul. Go ahead.
Verse 26. In journeyings often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils of mine own countrymen, in perils by the heathen, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren.
He's saying everywhere I've journeyed, I've gotten attacked. I had problems when I was in the water. I've been robbed. My own countrymen have caused me issues. The heathen have caused me issues. The other nations have caused me issues. In the city, I have problems. In the wilderness, I've had problems. In the sea, I've had problems. And false brethren lying on me. I've had many issues. Paul's writings are supposed to be in here. That's why the Most High or Christ used Paul, because he was a mighty man. And when he was raised up for this day. He went through what he went through, all the schooling, all the killing that he did was all so that he will be mighty for this word. That no one would bring him fear. He wouldn't be scared to go to prison. He wouldn't scared to get attacked by anyone. See, a lot of Israelites haven't been through anything. They haven't been through the military. They haven't fought in war. They haven't almost passed out from doing different things. They have never conditioned their body and mind. Everything for me that I've gone through from a young age was for this day. Just like Paul. So the same way, the reason I can read this and understand is because the same way that Paul went through all that he went through up until that point when Christ spoke to him is the same way for me. I was number one pretty much in everything I've ever done. Number one in track. Number one in track and field, pole vaulting, 40-yard dash, relays. It didn't matter. I was always number one. All of that was for to build me up, to be ready to deal with the demons in Israel and to be able to deal with the heathen of the other nations. Being number one in weightlifting, all of that, and getting the mentality and the strength to become number one in the state in weightlifting. All of those things was building me up to be able to teach this truth and not be scared. Going in the Marine Corps, being one of 4 people to graduate from water survival with your hands tied behind your back, your feet tied, thrown in the ocean with sharks and different things, and having to survive and teaching Marines how to survive. All of that was to get me the mentality to be able to deal with Israel and not to fear them. To not worry about other Israelites, no matter what their level in the truth was or is. That you don't care about rank. That you're willing to teach this truth and do that which is right and don't care about rank or anything. Going to college. Going to officer school. Being one of the only blacks to go through officer school for the Marine Corps. Training with the FBI in Quantico, Virginia. All those things were to build me that I didn't know was all for Israel. Skiing, hiking, ice skating, all those things were to build me. Jumping out of planes, every single thing was to get me to a point where I had no fear. So when I build this truth, no one can deter me, and to be disciplined in doing this truth. A lot of people are not disciplined. You have to read these words and you have to do it. If it say you do this, then that's what you do. But because a lot of Israelites are very undisciplined, they don't do what the word says, because they really don't want to do it, because they don't have that peace in them. The Most High has set certain things in order. All those things, being a martial arts instructor, fighting people from all levels, no matter what size they were. All that was just to get me where I don't fear nothing. Fighting people 6'5", 250 pounds, martial artists, mixed martial artists, all that, and throwing them around like a little baby. All that was to train me up so that when I get out there and I'm teaching, that no one can cause me to fall off my square. And to be able to take instructions as I'm instructed to do by the Most High, just like Paul was able to do what Christ advised him to do. Go ahead.
Verse 27. In weariness and painfulness, in watchings often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often, in cold and nakedness.
He's letting you know in everything I still follow Christ. In weariness and painfulness, in watching often, in hunger and in thirst and fasting and often, in cold and nakedness. He's saying when I was stripped down in the streets with nothing, I still was going to get this word out like Christ commanded me to do. He built Paul for that. He put him in the highest level so he could be able to break these words down in the scriptures. Everyone can't break these scriptures down. Some are unlearned, some are undisciplined, some don't have the schooling to be able to understand Paul's writings. Some never graduated, some graduated, but they didn't graduate at higher levels. Some don't do research. Some think they know, but they don't really know. Go ahead.
Verse 28. Beside those things that are without, that which cometh upon me daily, the care of all the churches.
Go ahead.
Verse 29. Who is weak, and I am not weak? Who is offended, and I burn not?
He's saying, who is weak, and I'm not weak. He's saying, we all have issues. Every last one of us. But that's not an excuse. Go ahead, verse 30.
And if I must needs glory, I will glory of the things which concern mine infirmities.
Go ahead.
Verse 31. The God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, which is blessed forevermore, knoweth that I lie not.
He's saying that the Most High God and Christ know everything that he's saying is truth. Verse 30, if I must needs glory, I will glory of the things which concern mine infirmities. He said he's only going to glorify those things that of his infirmities, those things that he needs to work on. He's not going to glorify what he's already good at. Verse 32.
In Damascus, the governor under Aretas, the king kept the city of the Damascenians with a garrison, desirous to apprehend me.
He said there was a whole garrison, a whole military garrison that was there that was looking for him. It's like having the president or the governor of the state sending the whole police department searching for you, for this truth. We as Israel have not gone through 1/10 of what Paul went through. And to those Israelites that try to discredit Paul and his writings because they don't understand his writings, they need to repent of that. Do what the scriptures say and stop saying Paul's writings are off or something is going on with Paul's writings because you're not learned enough to understand what he's saying. Go ahead, verse 33.
And through a window in a basket was I let down by the wall, and escaped his hands.
So he had to be let out of a window in a basket down a high wall to escape their hands. It's like being in a military prison and they got you up high and somebody let you down in a basket to escape How many Israelites is that happening to? And you have the audacity to try to discredit Paul when he went. There's a reason that so many of the New Testament was that scribes wrote about Paul. That scribes were used to write a lot of Paul's writings, and it's about Paul because he went through a lot. We as Israel, we have a lot. You're supposed to use Paul as an example of how you should be. You're supposed to use the people before us and what they went through to build yourself up and say, I want to be like that. You're not, because you don't understand something, try to tear down one of the apostles or one of the prophets or someone who wrote many books of the New Testament. Paul's writings are correct. They're hard to understand. But if the Spirit of the Most High is upon you and you ask Him to help you understand and interpret that, and you know that, and to all those that say that He's talking to other nations, there's a reason that He says in verse 22, go back to 2 Corinthians 11, verse 22.
Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I.
This right here is letting you know everyone He's talking to is Israelites, Hebrews. These are the people in Corinthians or Corinth. Throughout Paul's writings, it's Israelites. It's not the other nations. He's ministering to the Israelites in Corinth and all over. Those were the places he was going to when he was shipwrecked. He was going to other lands to teach those Israelites, not to teach the other nations. To raise up the tents of Jacob and the dispersed of Israel. He was going to the dispersed of Israel and Jacob, the Jews. And with that, I say shalom.